I'm Dan Smolin. I built a successful executive career in marketing and communications before becoming a top headhunter and founding my own executive search firm. Now get this, every day, mainstream media runs stories in which old school bosses and thought leaders frame your work and workplace issues in ways that are often divisive and unmeaningful. And that's just crazy. The time has come for you to answer the question, what's your work fit? So that your work and career fit who you are, how you want to live, and what you want your lasting contributions to be. What's your work fit? It answers your questions and tackles the issues that keep you up at night about advancing your career in this time of workplace revolution. So let's get started. Hey, good day, everyone. To all our listeners across North America and around the world, welcome to our very first show of 2023. Glad to have you. We're going to have a lot to talk about today. Great guest. Before we get to that, I just want to put out an appeal to any one of you who has a brand to support. We're looking for some sponsorship. If you sponsor this show, you can lead a revolution in the future of work and helping people to achieve for themselves a work fit that makes work part of a wonderful day doing many things and not the all-consuming time suck of a day. So if you are interested, reach out to me at dan@dansmolin.com. You could also find my contact information on my website at dansmolin.com. And let's get to it. Joining us today, well, let's get out of this and get to our guest, who is Dave Kelly. Dave is the general manager of Global Teck Worldwide, which helps ensure that your work done from home or at the office environment has the right gear to get the job done right. He's also co-host of the popular podcast called What the Tech. Welcome, Dave Kelly. Happy 2023.
Dan, so nice to be here. 2023. I'll tell you, I feel like 2022 is just closed, wrapped up in the books. 2023 is where it's at. I forgot 2022 even happened.
Oh, me too. I'll tell you what, anything could be better than last year for a lot of reasons.
This is true.
So let's get to it. Our question today is, can remote tech aid my work fit? So Dave, can remote tech aid my work fit? What are your thoughts?
God. Man, I'll tell you what. So I'm in the business of UC communication devices. So Global Tech, we specialize in headsets, speakerphones, cameras, and also the services that make these all run. But to be in a work at home environment or a hybrid environment, or even a return to office environment, a wireless, the devices that we sell, they're just interesting enough now to be really, really exciting. I can't imagine a work fit without one of these types of devices. I just think they fit in so well with people's lifestyle. People are moving away from the work-life balance conversation and kind of like having this conversation of it's not all 8 hours of work and then the rest of the time you can play and live. They really do enable users to blend work and life together. And that's really why I'm so excited to be a part of the show and be a part of this industry, especially today with the trends of freedom and having employees and employers being able to hire from anywhere and work from anywhere. It's a good time to be in this business that we're in over here.
So you're in southern New Hampshire along Interstate I-93, the main corridor into Boston, which is, I know from my days in sales, a traffic nightmare. And I would imagine that your neighbors who were co-located in Boston, but have since, seen the light and enjoyment of working remotely, are fighting the battle between do I keep this kind of lifestyle? Do I go hybrid? Do I go back to the office 4 days a week, 3 days a week? And how can remote tech aid my work fit? Now, in planning this episode, Dave, I thought to myself, what would be the ultimate solution for people who were like, you know what? I like being home. I hate that commute into Boston on I-93 or I-95 or the Mass Pike or whatever it might be. And I thought to myself, the solution was actually thought about by Gene Roddenberry almost 60 years ago. And that is the Star Trek transporter. Imagine that. Imagine how the utility of this. You get in the transporter and you can get right to the office. Obviously, we haven't invented this technology yet. I think Dave Kelly's going to get his first flying car before this happens.
And I'll take the flying car before that happens, because if you've ever seen the movie The Fly, if you remember, John Gutenberg jumps into his transporter and the fly goes in there and they mix DNA and it gets really, really, really ugly. Probably not very user friendly. Listen, the transporter though, think about the way we've all been adopting video in the past 2.5 years.
Right.
I might not be there, but I'm there. You can still bring teams together from near and far without getting in that car and sitting in traffic.
Yeah, I would be a little nervous that my head would end up on my shoulder or heavily pixelated, in reality. Well, this isn't going to happen, but it would solve a lot of problems for people who are like, I hate that commute. And the commute is a big barrier to success for a lot of people. I used to live in Southern Connecticut, and my drive to the office was, on a good day, an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Because the traffic is just abysmal. So that's not going to be a solution. But you work with customers, many of whom are straddling work environments, physical work environments, co-locations, home offices, perhaps even working at a Starbucks or whatever. And one of the first selections, not selections, but types of technology I wanted to talk about was the IP phone, or otherwise known as voice over internet protocol. I don't know what they call it now. I had one of these when I started my business as a recruiter. I bought one of these. At the time, it was a lot cheaper than a wireline. But more importantly, it helped me expand my business so that somebody could call one number and be connected to either me or any of my associates. Or they could call the direct line number. Easy peasy.
Mm-hmm.
Some really good stuff here. But as you said in pre-interview, you don't have to have the actual phone anymore, right? So how does a customer work with a service like Vonage or some of the others out there that allow for seamless telephone accessibility in the internet age? What are your thoughts on that, Dave?
My thoughts are, this device here, an IP phone, if you were to ask 100 people that work in the office, give me your top 3 business tools.
Right.
This telephone is going to be one of those 3. That,
right.
Computer, cell phone. Now, I think what's important is the phone is helpful. It's the service that the phone runs on that, in my opinion, is more important than just the desk phone itself. For example, we were talking about communication platforms like Vonage, RingCentral, Microsoft Teams, Zoom. These have all become household names over the past few years.
Right.
That's what floats on the background of an IP telephone. So a lot of folks might have this type of phone on their desk and have Vonage running in the background. Now, the benefit of that, Dan, is Vonage can accept telephone calls on that desk phone right there.
Mm-hmm.
You can also have the Vonage app on your cell phone. You can also have the Vonage app on your computer. So now you have your 1-800 Dan Smolin telephone number out there on your website. So when people call that, you can have those 3 devices ringing at the same time. So if you're just outside of your home office, you're just downstairs, you're putting some lunch together, you're taking your dog out.
Right.
If you have the Vonage service and you have the app, and you have that app on your cell phone, when someone calls your business telephone line, it can ring to your cell phone if you want that to happen. And then, of course, if you have a nice wireless headset that's paired up to that, the communication options are kind of endless at that time. A lot of our customers, they're ditching the desk phone. I have an IP phone.
Mm-hmm.
I have not used that in over 5 years. I still have my phone number, but I don't see the need to have this cluttering up my desk, because my phone can follow me wherever I am.
Okay, and so that's the paradigm shift here for a lot of technology users, which is, if I can't be mobile, I don't want to have it. I would rather be able to use my iPhone and or my other mobile device and be able to travel. A lot of people have conversations that with their clients that may run long, and it might go from their home office to the commute to the co-location, and you want it to be seamless.
Yeah, and that happens all the time. Now, a lot of people that are using their cell phone for business, if they're not using Vonage or RingCentral or one of these other UC services, they're giving their personal telephone number to their clients and to prospects and leaving it on voicemail. And that's fine during work hours, but when you take a vacation, we all know that we have clients out there that they just will cross the line of communication. They have demands that are greater than other people. They want to be able to reach you whenever they can. And I don't want that type of client having my personal cell phone number. I still want to be able to communicate them with my cell phone so that I can get back to them as fast as possible. But I need them to have my business telephone number so that it's not forwarding to my personal voicemail that has, some sarcastic, witty voicemail message that I would never leave on my own professional line. So the cell phone, obviously a very important tool, but your personal telephone number should stay your personal telephone number. When you have one of these services like Vonage, you can still be part of that that main telephone number. You might have a team of people. You might have front desk that will, is your gatekeeper. So not having to use your personal cell phone number for business helps for sure with my work fit. That means a lot to me.
So 2023, I think, is going to be a year where it's going to be the year of the entrepreneur. I call it 3.0.
Okay.
The 1.0 was after the dot-com bust, when a lot of tech people were cast off. I know in the Washington, D.C. area, a lot of AOL people got let go. AOL used to be a huge, as you know, because your partner lives in the backyard of where AOL used to operate. It used to be a huge thing in the DC area. No longer, obviously. No, nor is AOL anymore. And then the 2.0 was after the 2008-2009 Great Recession, where all these amazing startups like Airbnb and popped up, and 3.0 is about to happen now. Major companies are laying off arbitrarily, anywhere between 10 and 15% of their workforce. They're cutting back. And the ones that are staying are being required to be in the office at least 4 days a week, maybe even 5. And the cachet of working as an employee for a company like that is waning very quickly. So people who are able to, I believe this year, are going to pivot into some sort of entrepreneurial mode. So let's talk about the solution aspect of what you do and how you work with an entrepreneur who says, I've got this great idea. It's maybe it's a service business, maybe it's selling merchandise, But I think if I can scale it, I will do so with independent contractors across the globe potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you have a conversation, Dave, with an entrepreneur like that who's like, you know what, 2023 is going to be about me. I'm really smart. I'm going to hang a shingle or a virtual one. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to start something that I hope will scale.
I'd say first, congratulations. Being your own boss is such a huge step, and I think some of these online influencers like Gary V are extremely encouraging, not just to the younger generations, but to people that are 40, 50, and 60. They have all these awesome online platforms, the use of social media, free advertising. I can see why a lot of people might be fed up with corporate America and they're like, I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to bet on myself. Definitely some tools that you want to consider. And, some of those tools we had mentioned, communication platforms. Having the right communication platform is going to aid in communication, collaboration, just working together. I know a lot of entrepreneurs that are working with global teams. So they need to communicate with their global team, but they might be at dinner. It might be 10 p.m. East Coast time, and they're communicating with people that are, 12 hours behind them. So for folks that are needing to stay connected to global teams, you really need to consider the value of having some of these communication tools, or a new upgraded platform, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, whatever it might be. It certainly helps. We talk about devices, and there was a manufacturer out there years ago that said devices make experiences, and I always liked that term. And I think what they were saying was that platform on paper, very useful.
Right.
But if the user doesn't have the right experience, they may not adapt it so fast. So when you have the right device, when you take some of these brands like Yealink, like Poly, EPOS, and Jabra, those organizations, they're working with these platforms so that their products can easily integrate with some of the features that those platforms set. So what it's doing is it's creating an experience so that the user can quickly adopt and use the value of the communication platform. But if I was to work with someone right now that was starting their own business, I guess first I'd say, get your own telephone number. You don't need to give out don't give away your personal cell phone number. You don't have to go invest in another telephone. You can get a secondary telephone number for cheap, and you can look to places like some of those options that I just mentioned. So get your own telephone number.
And that number is portable. So you can move it between carriers if you need to. And I had Vonage many years ago. One of the companies you work with ended up going to another brand, and I ported my phone number. I didn't want to give up that phone number. I had put it on my website, business cards, collateral, and so forth. That hasn't changed.
No, that's good. Now, is your telephone number your personal cell phone number?
Well, it became that. But I don't look to engage with people by phone very much. I'm a creator, so my involvement is on LinkedIn. I have conversations that way. If somebody's interesting, I'll reach out to them, and we'll have a Zoom chat. And I'll give them that number, but I don't publish my phone number on my website anymore because what ends up happening, unless you have a very clear mission statement of how you want to be contacted or what's the best way to contact you, maybe phone isn't the best if what you do is somewhat open-ended and somebody calling you is looking for a job and you're like, well, I'm not an employment counselor and I'm not even a headhunter anymore. So everyone needs to understand what their contact strategy is going to be, obviously.
True.
I want to pivot to a comment that was made before we went on the air by an old friend of mine, Doug Gilbert, who said, get some good audio and visual conferencing gear, because the amount of people I work with who are struggling with laptop cameras and speakers and earbuds is amazing. Let's talk about that, and let's talk about some of the solutions that you currently have. Why is that important? Why is the quality of the camera, the quality of um, the voice device important for people who are working remote or hybrid?
Well, I mean, listen, we're in a world where effective communication is key. I was just reading a post somewhere that it said, their number one thing for 2023 is speed. They want to do things faster. So imagine if you're having a conversation with someone and you're using an embedded microphone to talk on the speakerphone on your cell phone. I'll tell you, Apple does some amazing things with their operating system, but they're not doing amazing things with their microphones on their telephones. It's secondary. They're trying to probably use inexpensive components, keep the price low so that they can still maintain their margins on their product. If your goal is to do things faster, well, if I can't hear you and I have to ask you to repeat yourself, if we have misunderstandings, we're just dragging out our conversation. To be an effective communicator and an effective listener, that audio signal needs to be way above average. It needs to be much better than what everybody already has in their pockets. So when you have great audio, you're going to be just a better communicator overall. Listen, and if people are struggling to hear you, it's causing fatigue. It certainly causes fatigue. And it's not just about the call center. Yes, call centers and headsets make a lot of sense, but think about just the office professionals. You have that weekly team meeting. Everybody gives a little 5-minute update. It's important to be heard. So when you have the right audio, when you have the right solution, you have better tools. You don't hire a contractor to come over with a kid's plastic hammer. You'd wonder why you had that person come work for you at the beginning.
Indeed. And let's see, the pandemic started 3 years ago? I can't even remember anymore, Dave. But when it did, one of the things I talked about was the concept of thinking about your video presentation as being in a TV studio.
Yeah.
So I went to college and learned how to be a broadcaster. I learned the technical aspects and the presentational and the content aspects of being a really good broadcaster. So it was not lost on me the importance of lighting, the importance of the camera quality so that I look good, and the color value in my presentation is good. But I'm speaking on a broadcast quality microphone for that very same reason. I want people to be able to hear me and not struggle if they have hearing loss or something, so that what I'm saying, my intent, is clear from the get-go.
Yeah, and I must say that's such an important piece of this. When people started being sent home, we saw a huge jump in our business, but there was a small delay. Right. So we have a theory. Our theory is real simple. People got sent home. They started to use the embedded microphone. They started to use the embedded camera. They quickly discovered that was bad. And people were they just said, go to Amazon and buy something, buy anything. And when that was all happening, products quickly became hard to find. So I think a lot of folks were out there. They were just trying to find something, just something external. It didn't have to be name brand, just something.
So the technology we're showing on the screen here from Poly, I would imagine, requires a fairly robust broadband signal.
No. I mean, bandwidth is always important, for sure. These two devices here are pretty awesome. The one at the top left-hand side, it's an all-in-one video bar. So this is it's a plug-and-play solution, Dan. And what it does is it gives you it's a camera. It's a 4K camera. I wish I had the 3D graphic to show you. It has embedded speakers.
Oh, wow.
There's some amazing software that's going on in the background to help block out background noise. They have things like audio fencing, and there's different ways that you can customize it. So it has the embedded camera, speakers, and also a really nice embedded microphone. It's plug and play. It works with all of those platforms that I mentioned and more. And for someone that's looking for something that's easy, it can be portable. Just hook it up, plug it in, and go. You don't have to mess with the external speakers. You don't need all these extra pieces. Gives you really good quality on everything. And you can also control, what I like about that particular one is you can also control the camera so that it's not just a static image like a lot of web cameras are just kind of a static. They don't pan, tilt, or zoom or anything like that. So the all-in-one video bar, those have really been super popular, because while we might specialize in headsets and speakerphones and cameras, there is definitely an audience of people that they say, I want something that's easy to use, all in one, plug and play. And that particular product, that certainly does it.
So Stuart Katz has a question, and he asks, is there any research that links the overall quality of the picture, sound, backdrop, etc. of an individual's video conference view to their credibility, likelihood of success, and to what extent do those items correspond? Good question.
That is a great question. I have not seen any studies of that. But a very quick, fun story. My son was applying for an organization, and they had to do a video interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, come and go use my studio, buddy. I'm like, I got all the lighting, I got the cameras, I got the microphones. He's like, all right. So he went in there, did his interview, came out, gives me a high five. He's like, I nailed it. He's like, they said that was the best audio and video that they've ever seen from someone that was applying for a job for them. And I'm like, that's cool. That's a nice thing. And he did end up getting that particular job. But, I'd have to say, I want to go look around to see if there have been studies, because that would be very interesting to dive into. And I'd love to have the person that wrote or is involved with those studies to be a part of our show, because I have not seen anything like that.
I will add to Stuart's comment that it is a credibility factor. And I've been a creator now 5-6 years. If my sound quality was poor, nobody would be listening to my audio podcast. If my video quality was poor and pixelated, they probably would tip out of my live show. That hasn't happened because I've invested in technology.
But were you doing your show prior to those investments? Because when we started, we just wanted to get out there. We didn't want to waste any time. We knew it was going to be some learning lessons for us. Right. So we just plugged in and went, and we used the headsets that we have. We used the microphones that were built into it. We used the embedded cameras. When we would go back and we would look at that video, we'd say, listen, we can do better than this. So for us, we knew that there were better options, but we really wanted to start creating the content. But then, as things evolved, we started to invest in better hardware, right. And it has certainly made a difference. But I don't want, especially entrepreneurs or people that are new getting into content creation, if you're getting hung up that you might not have the best hardware, I wouldn't let that stop you. There's still a lot of people out there. I'm sure we're all guilty of it. We've seen videos that we've watched the entire thing, and very amateur, kind of grainy, not so great. Maybe There's some latency. So I don't think it should discourage people, from starting. But I certainly feel that, like you found, you want to present a certain way. You want it to be professional. You want to look your best. So the investment, I think, will come.
The adage in podcasting is start ugly. Start ugly. And because if you're perfectionistic, you're never going to pop your first episode.
Yeah.
So you start ugly. But I started ugly too. I had what I called my play school microphone. And I didn't have the best editing software. It was janky. I've made proper investments, but to somebody who's an entrepreneur but also a creator like me and like you, do you need a broadcast quality Shure microphone that retails for $400 a unit? No, you can get a plug and play one that doesn't need a pre-mixer, um, and the sound quality is quite good. But what I tell people is make sure and I think is this gets to Stuart's question is yes, there is a high correlation to the quality of presentation, both audio and visual, to credibility. And if you're not upping your game in that respect, people are going to tune out. You're going to have what's called pod fade, and
Yeah.
they'll be vaporizing like in that transporter from Star Trek and not coming back.
Well, I think one of the fun things of looking at content creators is looking at their earlier releases, seeing what they were doing years before you jumped on board.
Right.
And when I've done that, I have always seen this this move, like you can just see it's just amateur on day one. And I'll tell you, the credibility piece that Stuart was mentioning, I think if I jumped on someone's podcast and it was season 1, episode 1, and it was grainy and kind of slow, that's acceptable. It's their first show. Season 4, if it still is like that, I'm certainly going to question myself. Are they running a business? Are they investing in themselves? Are they reviewing what they've put out prior? Do they aspire to put out real high quality work? I think if you can see a progression in someone's output, then that speaks volumes. But staying stagnant with the old technology, I'll tell you, people, at least in our business, the people that were buying from us, they invested at the beginning of the pandemic with inexpensive plug-in $70, $80 headsets. Those same customers were returning 6 to 8 months later with a lot more budget available so that they could get real video equipment, real headsets. And that's because they realized that there was a value in that investment so that they could have, I don't know if they realized it was so that they could have a better work fit, but I'm sure that a lot of our customers have a much better work fit with some of these higher end solutions.
I want to pivot to my last question before you, second to last question for you, Dave. And that has to do with, and you're not an audiologist, but you may be one day, because millions of people in the workplace are suffering from frequency hearing loss. And my own problem with it developed over many years. I think it happened during all those high school rock concerts I went to at the old Capitol Center in Washington, D.C. area. Blew out my eardrums. But as I got older, I wasn't hearing my wife ask me questions. Very important question. Very important point. If you can't hear your loved one, get your hearing checked. And if you need hearing aids, go for it. So this was my investment a few years ago. These are, look like much. They're not supposed to. There we go. They're not supposed to look like much.
Yeah, they're small.
They're imperceptible. And so why am I showing you this? And why am I showing it to the audience? Because they're Bluetooth enabled. I answer the phone with that. I can do conferencing on my phone if I'm on LinkedIn, or if I'm tapping into a Zoom chat with somebody. I don't need any other device. So I'm wondering if you could talk about your point of view about this technology, and where you think it might go in the future. And would it become something that maybe a customer comes to you at some point and says, I know you're not an audiologist, Dave, although you look like one. What are your thoughts about addressable hearing aids that are Bluetooth enabled?
The manufacturers that we represent, I believe they all have sister companies that specialize in hearing aids. Some of those hearing aids may have Bluetooth connectivity for communication, and others don't. What I love about our industry is you take a manufacturer like Jabra, for example. They have a sister company, I believe they're called Beltone.
Oh,
So the
Beltone, sure.
engineers, for Beltone, they're able to share what they learn, about audio, and they're able to bring that into, these business products, for communication, so they can share some of that technology. Now, in my opinion, I do have a lot of folks that will contact us. They'll say, I have a hearing aid
Mm-hmm.
and I want to and it's Bluetooth. I have a Bluetooth hearing aid.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, listen, Dave, do you have an adapter that I can connect to my desk phone, that brick? Do you have an adapter I can connect to the brick to make it Bluetooth so that I can do this?
Mm-hmm.
There's an adapter or two that are out there that I wouldn't recommend. If the telephone had native Bluetooth, give it a shot. You can pair it. My biggest concern, and I think I may have addressed this to you, Dan, when we start to talk about those, my concern is if you're an employee and you rely on your hearing aids,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're also relying on your hearing aids for Bluetooth communications,
Mm-hmm.
how long is that battery going to last when you're using it for the phone? It's going to draw more power. When you turn on that Bluetooth and you have it connected, you're drawing more power. So what's that?
Well, it's less than a week. And they're little tiny little batteries, and they're not cheap. That's the downside of this, is that they they do make hearing aids that you can plug in and recharge.
Rechargeables, yep.
But the problem with that is that now you don't have use of them until they're fully charged. You swap out the
Exactly.
batteries, that's less than 30 seconds. So it is an investment in batteries. They are not rechargeable batteries. They are regular carbon-based batteries, but they're very, very expensive. Hopefully in time that will change. But the more that you are connected, I will tell you, the more that I'm connected online to these devices, watching video of any kind, watching video on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube will pull a lot of load from those batteries.
Right.
And so in a normal week's usage, maybe I get 6 or 7 days. If I'm using the phone a lot to watch AV, it could be 4 days.
Yeah.
That's a downside. But again, if you're losing your hearing and you need to supplement it with hearing aids, what choice do you have?
Well, I would say, if I was consulting with you and you said, listen, I'm looking to, Dave, how can I use these headsets for 5 hours a day so I can make telephone calls and not have, just remove the battery life equation altogether? I'd say, Dan, listen, let's look at how those fit. Are those in the ear? Are those behind the ear?
Right.
And then I would suggest a headset that you can use with those, so that you can turn your Bluetooth off on your hearing aids, and then take a headset like this. It shouldn't interfere with your hearing aids. It's not necessarily compatible on paper. Poly didn't sit down with the manufacturer of your hearing aids and say, all right, let's see if these are compatible and let's write it down into the user manual. But there's a lot of headsets that can easily be used with those folks that are using hearing aids.
Right.
And the reason why this one's a good one to pull up is because the ear cushion, it's a little bit larger. It's not an in the ear. I won't show this. It's not an in the ear bud style headset. So those work very, very well. I don't foresee hearing aid manufacturers purposely going into the market for communications. It's a niche market that a device manufacturer would rather invest their money in the niche market.
I can relate to this. So I used something like this for many years. I had no problem hearing the person on the other end of the connection. If you are using hearing aids, you take them out, and I'll just tip out of this. I have in-ear monitors, which I use, which I can hear you perfectly, and they're plugged into my computer. I don't need my hearing aids on top of that. So
Yep.
to your customer who calls you and says, how do I pair my hearing aids to my brick? They don't need to do that. They can just take them out of their ears, um, open up the battery compartment so that they're not paired, and plug in that wireless headset, and off to the races they go. Though they will probably have very good very good audio fidelity as a result. So, Dave, we've really had a lot of fun with this. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, it was nice to be here.
I have learned a lot, and we've got to get you back on many more times because gear is just so interesting to me, especially from in the office environment. Before we depart, I want to ask you, what's your work fit? What attribute, condition, experience, place or state of mind, or even a hack makes work part of your day doing other wonderful things and not the all-consuming day?
I love this question. In preparation for your show, I didn't have to look any further than the end of my afternoon here.
Really?
So I believe to achieve the best work fit, you need to have a company culture that embraces it. So my company culture embraces the ability to work from anywhere and communicate how we want to communicate, and understand that sometimes dogs and family and kids and the gas delivery, that might sometimes leak into the conversation. I am beyond the point of my life where I'm pretending I'm in my own private office. I used to feel really bad when background noise would get into the call, and that was just the culture of that particular organization. But my work fit, man, I'll tell you what, my son is 17 years old. He got his license last year. He's been saving money to buy a car. And there's a couple of cars that popped up on Craigslist yesterday, and he was showing me, and he's like, "Dad, can we go look at these tomorrow?" And I'm like, "Well, what time do you get out?" He's like, "After my clubs, it'll be home by 3:00. So my work fit is perfect. I have, we create online content. I do a lot of product reviews, and I take a lot of my products out in the wild. And what I'm doing later on today is, when he gets home from school, I asked him, I said, "You drive, and I'm going to sit in the passenger seat, and I'm going to use that opportunity to record some of these demo videos that I need to get done." My production team has this big checklist. I have a whole list of things I need to get done. And what we're doing is, I get to spend time with my son. I'll be in the passenger side recording the videos for work. Remember, my phone number, people can reach me anywhere. So during that time, if anyone on my team needs to reach me, I'm there. If a customer needs me, I'm there.
Wonderful.
And then I'm there for my son, and I can look at this vehicle. And you know what? Honestly, that headset's not going to come off my head. My son's not a big fan of me walking around, with a big giant headset and my big microphone, but I will get underneath that car if I need to. And if you call me, Dan, during that, I can answer my phone call. We're on the call. You don't realize I'm looking at a stolen catalytic converter. I'm just going to be able to do my thing. We can hold our conversation. If you happen to hear some background noise, no apologies. Hey, Dan, I'm out doing my thing with my boy, but you didn't interrupt me because I'm there for you. And I think, having the communication tools that I have, and the culture that we have, that's my work fit. I can do all of those things. It happened this morning. I had a wireless speaker. I have a 9:15 team call. We did an all hands meeting, and I just found myself on the floor for just a second with my dog, just saying good morning to her, giving her a little scratch. And I have my meeting in my speak, happening through my Poly Sync 20 Bluetooth speakerphone. I was paying attention perfect. I could hear the meeting perfectly. I could contribute hands-free. Meanwhile, my dog is like, "You're the best, man." So those are my two work fits.
So Dave, if our viewers want to reach out to you to learn more about what you all do, how would they do that?
Yeah, definitely check me out on LinkedIn. You can find me here. Our Amazon site, so we're a big Amazon seller, amazon.com/tech, TECK. If you want to see some of the technology that we have, our phone number is there. Our live chat is there. You can check out our Global Tech Worldwide and What the Tech channels. We have 2 channels on YouTube. Definitely check us out there as well, Dan.
That's fabulous. And I'm going to be one of your guests in an upcoming episode, I reckon.
Yes, sir. We went live for quite a while, like you are right here. We kind of changed directions a little bit, but we're putting out weekly content, and I know our editors and post-production team, they're working on your episode right now.
I look forward to that. Thanks, Dave. I hope we can get you back soon.
Hey, thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate you.